Although she received a friendly French welcome in Paris, it wasn't easy going for Theresa May. President Emmanuel Macron is often seen as the European leader with the toughest demands. May was lucky this time. France softened its stance and said a delay within limits was an option for the long-awaited Brexit. Still, France and other European countries are getting increasingly impatient.
We want to understand what the UK needs this extension for and what is the political surroundings around Theresa May to have this extension.
Before her visit to Paris, May travelled to Berlin to ask German Chancellor Angela Merkel about the extension. But like many Brexit arrangements, things didn't quite go as planned. Theresa May arrived a little too early and Merkel wasn't there to welcome her. After the meeting, Merkel said Brexit could be extended to the beginning of 2020. But many European leaders are urging the British to provide more clarity. This was the call on Tuesday morning at a meeting of EU foreign ministers.
We are waiting finally for substantive steps in the right direction. Up to now, nothing at all has changed. We are, of course, thinking about an appropriate extension of the deadline and also about a longer extension. They must, however, come with very strict conditions.
With official visits to Berlin and Paris completed, Theresa May now has to brace herself for the upcoming emergency summit in Brussels.
Well, for the very latest, let's bring in our Brussels correspondent, Bernd Riegert, and DW's Birgit Maas in London. First to you, Bernd. Tell us, are the EU member states united on giving Theresa May more time to get the Brexit deal approved? Because just a couple of days ago, some like France were sounding very reluctant.
No, as it stands now, the EU is very united and also very, very patient with Great Britain, because the EU does not want to take the blame for a no-deal hard Brexit, for Britain crashing out of the EU. This is not our decision, said the EU negotiator Michel Barnier. So Mrs. May will be offered a long extension, 9 or 12 months, but Britain can leave at any point. But there are two conditions attached. First, Britain has to take part in the European elections end of May, and Britain has to grant a kind of a sincere cooperation in this extended period. This is a kind of a, if you will say so, a backstop for the EU this time to prevent any future Prime Minister to obstruct EU business and to prevent a spillover of the chaos from the islands to the continent.
OK, so a couple of conditions there being put forth in Brussels. Over to you, Birgit. EU leaders have said that any further extension of the Brexit deadline also depends on London presenting a clear purpose for an extension. Does Theresa May have a clear purpose, or just a vague hope that Parliament will eventually make up its mind?
It's really more a vague hope at this point. She is talking to the opposition, to the Labour Party, and those talks are continuing. But it's actually far from easy to reach a consensus, because there isn't really a tradition here in the UK to work together, to cooperate across party lines. So that makes it quite tricky. Also for Theresa May herself, she is really not in a very secure position. We've had people from her own party asking for a change in the party manifesto, so that there could be another leadership challenge. They don't want to see Theresa May. For them, taking part in the European elections, like Bernd mentioned, and staying longer in the EU is absolute anathema. So really a lot is still up in the air at the moment, and Theresa May's position herself is really not stable at all.
Birgit Maas in London and in Brussels for us there. Bernd Riegert, thank you very much to you both. Well, it's been almost 3 years since the UK decided in a referendum to leave the European Union. But why did Britons vote the way they did? Here's a look back.
The UK has voted to leave the European Union.
These words left about 52% of Great Britain ecstatic and the other 48% in shock, not least Prime Minister David Cameron. His Conservative Party and the British people at large had always been divided over Europe. Cameron gambled on a referendum to settle this question and assumed Britain would remain in the EU.
Let's get out there and win it on the 23rd of June. Thank you very much.
But he was wrong. The Leave campaign, led by Nigel Farage and the UK Independence Party, fanned the fears of migration and open borders, and this at the height of the European migration crisis. Others, like former London Mayor Boris Johnson, used false promises to convince Britons that there was no other way than to leave the EU.
It's our last chance to sort this out and take back control. If we don't vote to leave tomorrow, we'll remain locked in the back of the car, driven in an uncertain direction, frankly, to a place we don't want to go, and perhaps by a driver who doesn't speak the very best of English.
The traditionally Eurosceptic British media was also in the game, many newspapers actively campaigning for a Leave vote. On top of that came a general dislike for a European Union perceived as slow, bureaucratic, expensive and dominated by Germany and France.
At the moment, we've got too many bureaucrats in Europe telling us exactly what we've got to do and when we've got to do it, and I don't think we're able to govern our own country anymore, to be honest.
We'll have more money because we won't be paying so much to the EU, and it'll unleash great entrepreneurial forces within the country.
We used to be Great Britain, now we're just Britain, so really we should get the great back and sort ourselves out, really, shouldn't we?
After the referendum, the Leavers celebrated the victory of their lives.
Let June the 23rd go down in our history as our Independence Day!
And the man who'd set the ball rolling resigned.
So we'll have a new Prime Minister in that building behind me by Wednesday evening. Thank you very much.
Leaving it to others to try to reverse more than 40 years of political and economic union.
Do, 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 do.